Hello, good people. Merch seems to be ruining America. It's ruining America. Merch, merchandise, t-shirts, hats, mugs. It's ruining America. But is that a symptom or is that part of the larger problem? I honestly don't know. We're going to go into it right now. Symptom or problem? Keep that in the back of your mind. So I just watched this documentary. It's called This Place Rules. It's by Andrew Callahan, and it's on HBO right now. Definitely check it out. It is about the run-up to January 6th. It's sarcastic. It's disrespectful. It is what January 6th actually deserves. It was a ridiculous thing that happened, especially when you go behind the scenes and you look at the players involved. It's comical. And a woman died. And unfortunately, as we've seen through many of these videos, unfortunately, some of the biggest tragedies in history happen over something comical, over something ridiculous, over idiots getting free reign to be idiots. And what do they cause? They cause destruction. Clowns. Clowns. Someone could make the argument that clowns have done more damage to the world than serious people. So here we are again. Why should it be any different right now? Really, why? We don't deserve any better, humans. We don't. January 6th, 2001. So for those of you who don't remember, you were under a rock or you just have peace, so you turned off the TV, and whenever anyone brings up January 6th, you just go, shh, 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 shh. I don't, shh. Which is by far the sanest response to January 6th. Anyway, January 6th, a crowd of people egged on by various right-wing media stormed the Capitol. It was an epic event. Some compare it to Pearl Harbor. Some compare it to 9/11. I think these are extreme comparisons. But nevertheless, just the image of these people storming the Capitol and trying to interrupt the confirmation of Joe Biden as president, urged on by QAnon. QAnon is one of the players here. It was really jarring to many Americans because that's one of our national symbols. So symbolically, watching that and seeing that really hurt a lot of people. And then you go behind the scenes to what a lot of us don't see because we're at home and we are not on the streets of DC. Callahan goes behind the scenes. He starts talking to these people. He analyzes all the players, and we realize that these people are kind of ridiculous. They're ridiculous. And that's why they have been pushed to the edge and to the fringe and not allowed in the mainstream, in corporate or whatever. And honestly, for what kind of personalities they have, they might do better on the fringe, as we have seen. Okay. This is not a review of that documentary. I honestly suggest you check it out. This is something that I realized while watching the documentary, and that is these people are just trying to sell merch. They're trying to sell t-shirts. Just when you think you couldn't think any worse of people, you realize that the motivations for people to call for a run on the Capitol came down to merch sales, came down to t-shirts and mugs. All right, fine. It's fine. Let's talk about the players. First and foremost, you have the mainstream media. They sell conflict. Really, they sell ad space. But what do we need to sell ad space? We need to keep watching that TV for 24 hours. 24 hours. How do we do that? Anger, conflict. For some reason, conflict is just so much more powerful than the good emotions. One negative image takes many positive images to erase, and then it's never erased. It's still in the back of our heads. Whether or not that negative image is true, whether or not that negative thought is true, it takes a lot of positive thoughts to undo a negative thought. And we learned that. Look, we are learning things all the time. The modern age is moving very quickly, and we are learning very quickly, and we're learning negative is more powerful than positive. And when you think about it, except for romantic or familial love, the negative will always win out. That's not a lesson I wanted to learn, but we did, and here we are. I don't know how many of you have read this book. This is a great book. If you haven't read this, I definitely suggest you check it out. This is something that maybe buy for your friends and family. especially if you're on a different side of your friends and family on a lot of issues. This book is fantastic to really explain what's going on, because it didn't always used to be this way. Back in the day, news was half an hour. We had our local news, that was another half an hour. So really, the news for the day was 1 hour. Now it's 24/7. Multiple networks, 24/7. They got to sell ad space. There's executives that need to get paid. There are anchors. There's a lot that goes into it. The mechanics of it, the logistics of it. A lot of people got to get paid, basically. And a profit needs to get turned. So they're going to do anything to do that, including rip families apart. They don't care. 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 You may call them sociopathic. Other people would call them capitalists. I'm not getting into a debate on that right now. All I'm saying is this is what the 24-hour news has brought us. And I'm going to read you a quote from this great book. I know this because I've created a lot of that content. Over the years, I became increasingly uneasy about feeding readers hate reflexes. I tried to get around this by only picking stories about things that were genuinely outrageous, but eventually you start to feel the tail wagging the dog. In recent years, I started to hear from other reporters who'd begun doing the same thing. The problem we all have is the commercial structure of the business. To make money, we've had to train audiences to consume news in a certain way. We need you anxious, pre-pissed, addicted to conflict. Moreover, we need you to bring a series of assumptions every time you open a paper or turn on your phone, TV, or car radio. Without them, most of what we produce will seem illogical and offensive. This is how immature we all actually still are. Okay. Though most of our problems are systematic, most of our public debates are referendums on personality. Meanwhile, a vast universe of systematic issues is ignored. We've begun steadily narrowing that field of view for decades, particularly in investigative reporting. And why is it all so crass? Okay, he goes on. Meanness and vulgarity build political solidarity, but also audience solidarity. Breaking barriers together builds conspiratorial closeness. In the Trump age, it helps political and media objectives align. It's basically a horror. If you are like, what social psychology, what society book is worse than horror? This is horror. And we fall for it. We fall for it every time. So that's fine. So that's the first player. The mainstream media, they sell ads. They sell conflict. That's kind of their merch, is actually the ad revenue when you pull it apart. And we've learned this in our lifetime. Check out Millennial Life of Chaos. That's something millennials have learned over the course of their lifetime. Okay, fine. And this applies for both left and right. It's not the left are worse than the right. Fox News does it. MSNBC does it. CNN does it. They all do it. And if they don't do it, then they're not competitive. So they all do it. The next player up, of course, Donald J. Trump, 45, president. I am of the belief that he did not actually want to be elected president. I really think this entire thing was just to get his star up, just to get his subscribers up, just to get more clout, but it got away from him and he became president. That is my most humble belief. You may think something else. However, we can agree that those Make America Great Again hats sold off the shelf. There was a lot of merch sold under Donald Trump. Also, his NFTs, do you remember that recently? A former president of the United States sold trading cards of himself, digital, which were also limited for some reason. It's fine. $100 a piece, and they sold out. So Trump always has merch. Always has merch. That's another player. It's so ridiculous. And if you don't laugh, you might start crying. If you care about your country and having children in it and bringing them up, and you might just be like, what are we doing? What have we done? What hath we wrought? Anyway, the next player, my favorite. I think he's the most entertaining man in the world. Okay? He is up there. Alex Jones. Alex Jones, very dangerous. He really is, but he's not wrong a lot of the time. He sort of interprets things in a way that fits his grand narrative, which is that the globalists are taking over, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? These past few years, maybe some globalists were taking over some things here and there because it got a little shady, and censoring him made what he was saying seem like it was the truth, and that the powers that be just don't want us to hear it. And you know what? We're learning from the Twitter files that maybe that's a bit of the case. So, Alex Jones is notorious for his merch, especially the Stop the Steal merch. Do you remember that? We covered that months before January 6th, because January 6th was not the first rally he had to stop the steal. There were others, and he had a whole merch campaign. And for some reason, the Capitol Police were not aware of it. Or maybe, this is what I think. I think that the officials thought that it was so ridiculous. It was so absolutely ridiculous that this man is calling for an insurrection. He's calling to overturn the election, as well as selling his dick pills, as well as selling his water filtration things. And he sells a lot of things. Honestly, if you watch InfoWars for about an hour, you're going to see about 15 minutes of ads. And he sells numerous things. So he's the king of merch, Alex Jones. Alex Jones was not wrong. The elites were abusing their power. They absolutely were abusing their power. As far as January 6th goes, maybe he was wrong there. But for the lead up to it, he kind of had a lot of credibility because the elites were lying all the time, as we now know from the Twitter files. And also get 30% off on vitamin D. So look, he's helping both ways. So that's fantastic. Then we have the Proud Boys. Callahan interviewed the Proud Boys leader. His name is Enrique Tarrio. He's actually Cuban, so kind of goes against this idea that they are a racist organization. But you know what? Kanye's the biggest neo-Nazi right now, so whatever. Everything's just in flux. It's all in flux. Enrique Tarrio, leader of the Proud Boys, selling merch. He comes out and he says it. He's like, look, I got all these t-shirts. He's actually got a nice setup. Manufacturing on site, it seems. He's not exporting it abroad. So that's good. American-made merch that says various things about how awful liberals are, how stupid the woke people are. Also, he implies that he sells merch for the other side because he says, look, I'm going to put food on this table. He's a hustler. He's a hustler. So that's fantastic. They're capitalists. They're all capitalists. Now, the flip, the opponents of the Proud Boys, we know them as Antifa. They're not good at merch. Okay? They're not good capitalists. And maybe they are weaker for it, but Black Lives Matter got in on the merch game. Do you remember Black Lives Matter? People died for Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter actually used to mean something when it first started. And then, of course, you get it as a slogan. It loses meaning. It becomes a slogan. It becomes an organization. And then there was the whole scandal of the funds being misappropriated, being used to buy all these houses. And now people think of Black Lives Matter as a scam, as a joke. But remember, when it first started, it had a good cause. And there were people who died under it. And I feel terrible for the people who gave their lives so that the cause they were supporting could just become a joke. But also, Black Lives Matter got in on the merch game. Everybody made a little money. Fantastic. Who said? Was it Lenin? Ooh. It may have been Lenin, but it's been falsely attributed to Marx. We don't know who said it, but it applies. The last capitalist we hang shall be the one who sold us the rope. And no, I'm not a communist, but I'm also not blind. Also, I have to recommend that movie Triangle of Sadness because this is important. It comes up in that movie. The last capitalist we hang will be the one who sold us the rope. So here we are. We have all of these organizations making money, selling merch, selling ads. The ads are the mainstream media's merch. Remember that. And maybe they tear down all of society in the process. While we're here, why not tear down all of society? As long as everybody gets paid, right? Well, that's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic where we are. And that's why I say that the January 6th, this documentary, handled it perfectly, because you have to laugh at these people. We should be laughing at these people. Of course, we remember that video on slogans, how they brainwash you. Remember that video? It's through slogans, and people cannot understand these great concepts, especially the very emotional ones that need to get to the streets. In order to hijack the brain, to get in somewhere where people start acting, a certain subset of people, not even all people, you use these slogans, these sometimes jingles and ads, their jingles or their trademarks, whatever you want to call it. Just do it is a slogan. And it gets to an animal part of their brain and just switches something on. So these slogans, these hashtags, these very simple sentences that often rhyme, these are being used to sell more merch. Okay, good. Here we are. We're selling merch. The business model, I suppose, is to get people repeatedly buying these slogans. Put it on a t-shirt, put it on a mug, put it on a coffee mug, put it on a hat. MAGA, Make America Great Again. This is what I stand for. It can be summed up in just this hat. Really, it's a feeling. Then we get into the advertising. This is not going to be a video on advertising. But just remember, advertising is a way that people manipulate psychology to get you to do something, to buy something. It's usually to buy something. In this case, it's merch, but it uses the same principles as brainwashing people for any other reason at all. Just these slogans, these stupid rhetorical devices that they get into people's heads. They overturn all of the reasoning for some people. Trump lied, people died. That's a good one. Or Fauci lied, people died. Whatever. Put it on a t-shirt. Stop the Steal is fantastic. Stop the Steal is great. Because it's stop the steal. Sta. That's a very powerful on your tongue. It's a sound that makes you stop. Why is stop? Used? Why do certain words sound the way they do? That's another video. But stop the steal. Very powerful. Phonetically powerful. And then there's just a bunch of shirts. Some do better than others. Black Lives Matter is a fantastic one. It's a great slogan. Would have been great if we kept to the original meaning, but people needed houses. People needed clout. People needed to flaunt their wealth in front of others. In this case, other people's wealth. That turned into a mess. So fine, here we are. The mainstream media is selling ad space. The independent, I don't want to call them grifters, the independent leaders. The independent leaders are using it to sell their merchandise. Now, we have reputable journalists on either side. We really do. A lot of people don't read them because, honestly, it costs a lot of money to pay journalists, especially investigative journalists. You're talking about a project that might take a year or two. There's nothing being published from them for that year or two. So you got to pay them, what, 40, 50, 60 a year to be working on something. One story that may get published next year. It might. And in the meantime, who's paying for that? Well, who's paying for that? Journalism used to be a loss leader. It's not anymore. We need to sell this ad space. We need to sell the things associated with it. We need to keep people tuned in. It's a cycle. Remember that. This is a game, and you're a pawn in it. I'm a pawn in it too. We're all pawns in it. I mean, worse than pawns. I guess we're pawns. It's fine. So here we are. We've gotten ourselves into this mess because this is the way the system works. Now, you can say this is to do with the American obsession with materialism. We have to buy our ideas. Does that make any sense to you? I'm not talking about buying a book. Yeah, there's many ideas in this book. There's a lot of great ideas in this book. I'm not talking about that because this is one product, and inside it has a lot of different ideas. It has a lot of analysis. It's really in depth. And honestly, how much did I pay for this book? Was it like $15? $12? The $12 I paid for it, it's worth so much more. It's worth so much more than the $12, $15 I paid for it. I could probably get it used for even less than that. So we're not talking about books as a way to transmit ideas. We're talking about slogans on t-shirts. We're talking about ideas that are big and they're complex, and they've been concentrated down. I wouldn't even say concentrated, diluted even. It's to the point that you can put it on a t-shirt. So here we go. This American obsession with materialism, with possessing other things, as if you buy the t-shirt, you now own the idea. I'm going to actually put up this quote from Marshall McLuhan, and he really breaks it down. It's a video, so it's not a quote. I'll put that. And he really, really breaks it down as to where we are headed.
Most people read ads about things they already own. They don't read things to buy them, but to feel reassured that they have already bought the right thing. In other words, they get huge information satisfaction from ads, far more than they do from the product itself. Where advertising is heading is quite simply into a world where the ad will become a substitute for the product, and all the satisfactions will be derived informationally from the ad, and the product will be merely a number in some file somewhere.
So he understood what advertising was going to be doing going forward and how it's going to be, I feel, rewiring our brains, because we grew up with this. We don't see it as strange, but to someone, coming from maybe the 50s or the 60s who just didn't see this constantly, they may have seen this as very strange, the way we think about products. So we need a product to show that we believe a thing. We need a hat. We need a t-shirt. And also, maybe we don't need to be so casual all the time. Why are we wearing our ideas on a t-shirt? Can we just go back to suits? I don't even like suits. I find them cumbersome, but it's in poor taste to put your political beliefs on a suit. So let's just do that. Okay. I've seen dresses that are they're newsprint. So the fabric or the pattern itself on the fabric is actually newsprint, and I think those look fantastic. But imagine you get up really close and it's just like some Proud Boys propaganda, and you're like, what are you wearing on your dress? But like, it kind of looks good, so it's fine. Anyway, I'm actually joking about the moving away from casual outfits, because as you can see, I like my casual outfits. But the shift in style seems to facilitate these t-shirt slogans. So here we are. Now, you're at home. You're like, Maya, that sounds awful. You've completely ruined my day. Sorry, first off, that's why you come here. But it shouldn't ruin your day. It really shouldn't ruin your day. And here's why. In order for the merch sales to keep going, the system has to keep going. This is actually anti-accelerationist, because you don't want it to all come crashing down if there's merch sales involved. Because look, we need the banking systems going. We need the credit card systems going. We need the post office going. We need a lot of systems going to get people their merch, okay? We can't tear it all down. So these people who are actually in front, leading this charge, it's in their best interest to keep everything going smoothly so they can keep selling their merch. So capitalism might destroy us. Capitalism might save us. That's great. It's just great. So I suppose this is anti-accelerationist, but pro-dumpster fire. Because what kind of a society are we going to live in where people are willingly sabotaging each other? They're sabotaging each other. They're sabotaging their fellow man. Why? For mugs? For t-shirts? For hats? For merch sales? But here's why I'm maybe less concerned than I otherwise would be. Because when you look at ideologues are also very dangerous, perhaps more dangerous. And when you get into people who are serious about making change, really serious about making fundamental change, consequences be damned, because they believe in an idea so badly. They're not selling merch. Hitler's not selling merch. He's selling his book. He's selling an idea. He's not selling merch, or who wasn't. You know what I mean? So he was much more dangerous because he was an ideologue, because he did believe in what he was doing. And luckily, thank God, these people don't believe in any of it. They're showmen. They just want to get that mug to grandpa. Okay. It's the difference between an ideologue and a hustler. These people are hustlers. They're not ideologues. So good, right? Good. My biggest concerns are really two here. Actually, they're three. But the first one is just our standard concern. And that the first one is basically that our children will grow up in a very annoying, frustrating world. They'll be annoyed all the time. We're annoyed all the time. Why shouldn't they be annoyed all the time? They're not better than us. They should be annoyed too. If we got to deal with this, them too, huh? No, that's petty. We shouldn't be petty to our own children. Mommy, Daddy, why didn't you work to make the world any better? Hey, We're all frustrated, okay? Do you remember when old people back in the day, I don't know how old you are, but when I was younger, old people, they used to come into this deli I worked at. They used to come in and I'd be like, how's it going? And they'd be like, SSDD. And that meant same shit, different day. And I was like, wow, that's a certain response. But I think once you get past a certain age, that is the appropriate response for how it's going. SSDD. And then one day we will raise children and they will go into a deli and some teenager will ask them, how's it going? And they'll say, same shit, different day. And we will know that we did a good job as parents. So that's my first concern. And it's not really a concern. But my actual biggest concerns here are this. One is that we accidentally tear this whole thing down. Like we're trying to sell merch and it just gets out of hand. Like we're trying to build a fire, just a little fire so we can warm our hands and feed our families, whatever. Not us, the people who are doing this. And a lot of us are a part of this, even if we're farther removed than others. So, we're just trying to build a little fire, warm our hands, feed our family, and the fire gets out of control and it burns the whole house down. So these merch sales just take on a life of their own and destroy all of civilization, Western civilization. That's a possibility. Okay, so my second big concern is that the U.S. often exports its nonsense ideas. Anyway, we do it all the time. We export our ideas, we export our culture, we export our music, we export our food all around the world. And that has kind of been one of our secret weapons, how we are able to prepare the world, it's not groom the world. People who hate America are like, that's how you groom the world to deal with y'all. No, nuh-uh. Facilitate? I don't know. Let's call this the homogenization of American culture worldwide. And it's sort of, Hollywood does it, our movie stars do it, Nike does it, everywhere, everybody knows Nike, everybody knows Michael Jordan, everybody knows Michael Jackson. So we do this and we export it across the world. Now, other things that we've exported that haven't been so great, the drug war. I mean, it messed with American society. It was annoying. It did not destroy American society. It has destroyed countries across the world. And that's something that we exported. And if you want to go into the history of the drug war, a lot of that had to do with money. A lot of that had to do with ego and people jockeying for power here in small social circles here. And so we export this across the world. And then it destroys whole countries, completely tears whole countries apart. Why? Because we like cocaine. But cocaine's illegal. Why is cocaine illegal with the people who like it so much? Marijuana, same thing. Like we exported that worldwide and it's ruined many lives. And this happens when a dominant power gets an idea in its head and then other people are like, hey, we're not inferior. We also have this idea too. Well, think about it. Was it a good idea to start with? Anyway, so that is my concern about these fake political leaders, these people who really just want to sell merch. Now, as we know, Brazil recently had its own January 6th. And I was like, oh, I hope they weren't influenced by what the United States did. I was really concerned about that. I was like, I don't want us exporting our nonsense overseas. But then I saw a picture that really made me feel good about the whole thing and really gave me hope. I'm going to put it on the screen. It's someone selling cotton candy to the rioters. I'm like, they have their own kind of merch. They have posters. The same guy will sell both poster. Lula, Bolsonaro. I'm like, y'all get it. Y'all really get it. And it just makes me think that maybe we're more alike than we are different. Because everyone's just trying to make a buck. And there are some dummies, and I honestly feel bad for these people who buy into it wholeheartedly and they believe in everything that's going on. And really, it's just egos at the very top and then people trying to get some money. So, good. Anyway, I am not against the selling of merch. I think people should buy and sell whatever they choose. It would be ideal, in my opinion, if we left merch sales to comedians and diners and, maybe the Boston Museum of Science, because you want to have a little keychain. But, leave it to the professionals. Subscribe.